Welcome to Private Stories, where people discover who they really are. My name is Adrian Cole, and I am 35 years old. Nights ago, my girlfriend told me I would make her look unprofessional if I showed up to the most important presentation of her career. What she did not say out loud was the part we both understood perfectly. The presentation she was about to deliver existed because of my research, my system design, my code. I am a data infrastructure specialist. My job is to get called in when large companies discover that the thing their internal team built is held together with hope, duct tape, and denial. I enjoy chaos that can be measured and repaired. I trust version histories, timestamps, and audit logs. Feelings can be argued with, data cannot. Madeline Pierce, my now ex-girlfriend, though at the time simply the woman I loved, works for a polished consulting firm that fills its brochures with words like innovation, transformation, and synergy. We met at a tech summit in Seattle. Same industry, different strengths. She could charm an entire boardroom over cocktails. I could make broken databases behave. We had been together just over a year, long enough to know each other's coffee preferences and unspoken anxieties. Not long enough to stop pretending that every compromise was temporary. About 7 months ago, her firm landed a massive contract with a private hospital network that wanted to rebuild its entire data backbone. Huge budget, huge visibility, the kind of project that turns into promotions, keynote talks, and glossy LinkedIn posts. Madeline was named lead consultant. For her, it was a dream. For her company, it was a trophy. For me, it was initially just a reason to celebrate with champagne and smug messages about how proud I was. Then the real system arrived. The hospital network's data environment was a nightmare stitched together from outdated platforms, incompatible formats, and compliance violations waiting to happen. On slides, it looked like an opportunity. In raw tables, it looked like a crime scene. Madeline started coming home, exhausted, shoulders tight, voice thin. She would drop her bag by the door and lean against my kitchen counter as if gravity had doubled. "This project is going to destroy me," she said one night, rubbing her temples. "I'm supposed to be the technical lead, but this is bigger than anything I expected." "Walk me through it," I told her. "Saying it out loud helps." She did. I listened. I asked questions. I grabbed a pen and started sketching on the back of an old grocery receipt. By the time her dinner had gone cold, we had mapped out a completely new architecture that might actually survive real-world use. She stared at the messy web of arrows and boxes. "Adrian, this is incredible." "Then use it," I said. "We can refine it tomorrow." That was how it began. Not as a contract, not as official consulting, just a boyfriend lending his expertise after hours. No invoices, no agreements, just trust. The help expanded quietly. Evenings turned into weekends at my dining table, laptops, open coffee cups multiplying faster than we could wash them. Madeline handled presentations, timelines, client calls. I handled the actual engineering, the models, the pipelines, the compliance framework that kept the entire thing from violating federal regulations. She would pace behind me, asking rapid-fire questions. "Can this scale if they acquire another hospital mid-year? What about audit requirements? Will regulators accept this structure?" "Yes," I would answer while typing. "If we build it this way." I wrote the queries, built prototypes, documented everything by date because documentation is survival. At first it felt like consulting, then collaboration. Then, without either of us acknowledging it, I was doing most of the technical work while she managed optics and politics. I told myself it was fine. I liked the challenge. And I loved her. Helping her succeed felt like investing in our future. The first warning sign was small enough to ignore. "One of our internal reviews went amazing," she said one Thursday evening, kissing my cheek as she walked in. "They loved the new architecture direction." "Our architecture," I corrected automatically. She laughed, but it sounded thin. "Of course ours, I just did not phrase it that way in the meeting." My chest tightened slightly. "How did you phrase it?" "As my proposal." She raised her hands quickly when she saw my expression. "Adrian, come on, if I tell my bosses my boyfriend designed it, they will ask 1,000 questions. Why did I need outside help? Did I exaggerate my skills? Am I outsourcing deliverables without approval? It gets messy. It is the truth, I said. It is corporate reality, she replied. I will make it up to you, okay? When this is finished and I get promoted, we can take a trip anywhere you want. She meant it as reassurance. It sounded like a transaction. I swallowed the discomfort. Just do not forget whose system you are presenting. I will not, she promised. She did. Over the next several weeks, her language shifted subtly. My design became her approach. My models became her framework. My analysis became her insight. I heard it in the way she repeated praise from her supervisor, a man named Leonard Shaw. Leonard says I have a real talent for seeing the big technical picture. She told me one night, rolling up her sleeves as if the compliment were something tangible. Did you tell him where that picture came from? I asked. She hesitated just long enough for the answer to be obvious. I said I had help thinking it through. From who? She gave a small, helpless smile. What do you want me to say? My boyfriend did the hard parts. Yes, I said before I could stop myself. She laughed, but her eyes stayed guarded. You are impossible. The thing about being meticulous is that you never have to decide whether something might matter later. You simply keep records. Every script, every diagram, every email where I sent her a solution, and she replied, "Perfect, I will present this tomorrow." I never intended to use any of it. It was just my nature. 3 weeks ago, she told me about the final presentation. This is it, she said, dropping onto my couch, laptop balanced on her knees. Final recommendations to the executive board. If this goes well, Leonard has basically promised a promotion. She looked exhilarated and terrified at the same time. You will crush it, I said. You know the system better than anyone. I know it because you taught it to me, she admitted with a strained half-smile. That is what scares me. What if they ask something insanely technical and my mind goes blank? You have been living inside this project for months. You will handle it. She chewed her lip. Would you maybe come sit in the back? Just knowing you are there would help. Of course, I said. If you want me there, I will be there. At that moment, I believed her. I did not yet realize that believing her would become the most expensive assumption I made all year. The night before the presentation felt unnaturally heavy, as if the air itself knew something was about to fracture. It was Thursday. Outside my apartment, the winter sky over Chicago had already turned pitch black by early evening. Inside, the only light came from our screens, turning the living room into a pale electric cave. We sat at my dining table, her slide deck open, my handwritten notes scattered like debris from a long battle. I walked her through the most delicate parts of the integration strategy one last time. I think I am as ready as I am going to be, she said, leaning back and rubbing her neck. If I look at one more bullet point, I will start hallucinating. You will be fine, I told her. Just remember the narrative. Old fragmented systems, new unified pipeline. Measurable improvements. Keep it simple unless they push for details. She watched me for a few seconds longer than usual. You are still coming tomorrow, right? If you want me there, yes, I said. You decide. She hesitated. I felt it before she spoke, like a sudden drop in temperature. Actually, I have been thinking, she said slowly. It might be better if you do not come. I set my pen down carefully. Okay, why? She exhaled as if I were the one complicating things. You know how passionate you get about technical details. Passionate, I repeated. If I oversimplify something or miss a nuance, you might want to jump in, or I might look at you for reassurance, and that could make me seem like I do not fully own the material. I would not interrupt your presentation. Not intentionally, she said quickly. I know you would be trying to help, but perception matters, and if people realize how much assistance I had from you, it could make me seem less capable, less professional. There it was, stripped of polite wrapping. You do not want me there, I said slowly, because you are afraid someone will realize I built the system you are about to present as yours. That is not what I said. It is what you meant. She looked away. I worked on this too, Adrian. I handled the client, the coordination, the meetings. And I built the architecture, the models, the compliance framework. You know that. Silence stretched tight enough to snap. "I thought you wanted to help me," she said finally, her voice small in a way that once would have melted me. "I did and I do, but helping you is not the same as doing your job while you pretend it was yours." Her jaw tightened. "So what do you want me to do, introduce you as my secret engineer, hand you the microphone in front of my boss? I want you to stop erasing me," I said quietly. She shook her head as if I were being unreasonable. "Just do not come tomorrow, it is safer for both of us." "For both of us," I repeated, tasting the lie. She closed her laptop. "I need sleep, big day." She kissed my cheek as though we had not just torn something fundamental apart. Then she left. The door shut with a soft final click that echoed longer than it should have. The apartment felt wrong afterward, too quiet, too still. The dishwasher hummed faintly in the kitchen. My monitor still displayed the system diagram, a web of connections that would carry her name in less than 24 hours. For the first time since this began, I allowed myself to see the situation without denial. This was not partnership. This was not mutual success. This was my expertise wrapped neatly in her identity, while I was expected to remain invisible so no one would notice the seams. I opened a new folder on my desktop and gave it a deliberately bland name: Medical Infrastructure Documentation. Then I started gathering everything. I did not sleep much. Not because I tossed and turned, but because I lay awake staring at the faint glow of the router, replaying every sentence she had spoken. "You will make me look unprofessional. It is safer if you are not there." At midnight, the dishwasher switched to low power mode automatically because months ago I programmed it to. My systems behaved predictably. My code obeyed logic. The only unpredictable variable was the woman who wanted to stand on my work without my name attached to it. By morning, something inside me had shifted from hurt to clarity. I made coffee, sat at my desk, and opened the folder. Everything was there. Every architecture diagram, every set of queries, every version, from messy sketches to polished blueprints. Email chains where I wrote, "This revision should resolve the audit logging issue." And she replied, "Perfect, I will present this tomorrow." I had not collected it as ammunition. I had collected it because organization is how I think. Now it looked like something else. Evidence. I began assembling a single document. Not rushed, not emotional, meticulous. Technical architecture, integration models, compliance framework, performance analysis. Each section included timestamps, explanations, and development history. When I finished, the file was over 100 pages long. My fingers hovered above the keyboard as the real question formed. If she is willing to pretend I do not exist, am I willing to pretend this is acceptable? No. I opened a new email addressed to Leonard Shaw. Subject: Medical Infrastructure Project, Technical Contribution Context. For a long moment, the blank message glowed on the screen while my pulse thudded in my ears. Then I typed, "Leonard, I hope this message does not come across as inappropriate, but I wanted to share context regarding the technical development of the medical infrastructure project prior to today's presentation. Over the past several months, I have provided substantial technical work, including architecture design, integration, modeling, compliance planning, and performance analysis outside any formal relationship with your firm. Attached is documentation of this work. This is not intended to diminish Madeline's contributions, but I believe you should have full visibility into how the solution was created before making decisions related to the project. I am available to answer any questions if needed. Best regards, Adrian Cole." I read it 3 times. It did not sound angry. It sounded factual. I attached the document. At exactly 9 in the morning, I pressed send. The message vanished from my outbox with a soft electronic whisper. For the next 2 hours, I existed in a strange, suspended state. Emails arrived, but none from him. Promotions calendar alerts a message from a client about an unrelated project. The world continued normally, unaware that I had just struck a match near a carefully constructed illusion. At 11:12, my inbox chimed. Subject: Medical Infrastructure Project, Technical Contribution Context. Adrian, Thank you for bringing this to my attention. I have reviewed the materials you provided, very thorough. Would you be available to attend the presentation this afternoon at our downtown office? Your perspective may be valuable. Leonard Shaw. I stared at the screen. He did not sound angry. He did not sound dismissive. He sounded interested. Before fear could argue, I replied, "Yes, I can attend." I did not tell Madeline. If she wanted me invisible, she could experience the surprise of discovering I was not. The downtown office tower looked exactly like the kind of place that depends on people like me to repair invisible disasters. Glass walls, polished floors, elevators that moved with unsettling quiet efficiency. Everything designed to signal control even when chaos hid beneath the surface. I arrived at 1:40 in the afternoon, signed in at reception, and received a visitor badge with my name printed in clean corporate lettering. Cole Adrian. A young assistant guided me to the executive conference room on the top floor. The door stood open. Inside, the room rose in gentle tiers, facing a massive presentation screen. Rows of padded chairs, long tables with power outlets, bottled water lined with military precision. About 40 people were already there. Consultants, hospital executives, board members, expensive suits, and practiced expressions. Near the front, Leonard Shaw sat with a tablet in front of him, posture composed, eyes sharp. When he saw me, he stood and leaned slightly forward. "Adrian, thank you for coming." His tone was neutral but deliberate, as if each word had been weighed. He gestured toward an open seat in the front row. Close enough to observe, impossible to ignore. I sat, placed my laptop on the table, and opened the documentation file. Seeing my own diagrams on the screen steadied me. At 1:55, the room quieted, conversations dissolving into anticipation. Madeline walked in. She wore a charcoal suit, the one I had helped her pick for major meetings. Her hair was perfectly styled, her expression confident, controlled, the version of herself she showed to the world. She laughed at something a colleague said, then stepped to the podium. She arranged her notes, inhaled, and turned toward the audience with a polished, professional smile. Then she saw me. The change was immediate. Her eyes locked onto mine, then dropped to my laptop, then flicked to Leonard. Color drained from her face, as if someone had dimmed the lights inside her. Her smile faltered, tried to reassemble itself, and failed. I watched the exact moment she realized the ground beneath her had shifted. "Good afternoon, everyone," she began. Her voice cracked on the second word. She cleared her throat, forcing steadiness. "Thank you for being here today. I will present our final recommendations for the hospital infrastructure project." She glanced at me again, brief, desperate. I kept my expression neutral. "For the past several months, my team and I have been working on." She stopped, her eyes fixed on my laptop screen. Recognition unmistakable. Leonard stood. "Madeline, before you continue, I believe we need clarification regarding the technical development of this project." The room went completely still. Every head turned, first to Leonard, then to her. "This morning," he continued, "I received documentation from Mr. Cole demonstrating extensive technical contributions to the architecture and models being presented today, contributions that were not previously disclosed." He gestured toward me. "Could you explain the nature of his involvement?" Silence pressed against the walls. Madeline opened her mouth, closed it, swallowed. "Adrian is my boyfriend," she said finally, her voice smaller than I had ever heard it. "He helped me think through some technical aspects informally." Leonard repeated, glancing at his tablet. "According to this documentation, Mr. Cole designed the core architecture, built the integration models, developed the compliance framework, and produced the performance analyses, in other words, the technical solution itself." A ripple moved through the audience, chairs shifting, whispers quickly suppressed. "I managed the project," she said quickly. "I handled the client relationships, coordination, and leadership, and that is significant," Leonard replied calmly. "But we have a serious issue if core deliverables for a client were developed by someone outside our firm without disclosure contracts or intellectual property agreements." Her eyes snapped to mine, anger and panic colliding. "You sent him that file," she said. "I did." "Why?" "Because you asked me to stay away," I answered evenly. You said I would make you look unprofessional if people realized how much of this work came from me. I thought Leonard should know whose system he was about to stake the firm's reputation on. That is not fair, she snapped, composure cracking. We collaborated. You never used that word in your meetings, I said. You presented my work as your own methodology, your insight, your design. That is not collaboration, Madeline, that is appropriation with better lighting. Several people in the second row stared intently at their notebooks as if suddenly fascinated by paper. Leonard cleared his throat. We will pause the presentation, he announced. Given this information, we need time to review the situation fully. He turned to the audience. Thank you for attending. We will reschedule once we have clarified development and IP status. Chairs scraped back, voices erupted in low buzzing clusters, curiosity, irritation, speculation. As the room emptied, Leonard approached me. Mr. Cole, thank you for coming forward. Would you be willing to stay for a meeting with me, Madeline, legal counsel, and HR to discuss this in detail? Yes, I said. Madeline stared at me as the last executives filed out. Not rage, not grief, something closer to disbelief, as if she could not comprehend that the story had stopped obeying her script. The truth was simple. I had stopped allowing her to edit me out of it. The walk to the smaller executive meeting room felt impossibly long. She trailed a few steps behind me, opening her mouth occasionally, as if to speak, then closing it again whenever she noticed the others ahead. Inside the room, a long glass table, weighted water glasses, untouched documents already printed. I took a seat on one side. She sat across from me, Leonard at the head legal counsel beside him. All right, Leonard said, folding his hands. Let us understand the scope of this situation, Mr. Cole. Could you describe your involvement from the beginning? I opened my laptop, and I explained. I walked them through the first sketch on a scrap of paper. The original architecture diagrams, the compliance structures, version histories, emails, code annotations. Each piece landed with quiet, undeniable weight. Halfway through, Madeline leaned forward, hands clenched. He is making it sound like he did everything, she said too loudly. Leonard looked at her calmly. Then explain what actually occurred. She glanced between us, between the evidence and the impassive legal counsel. It was a partnership, she insisted. We were together, we worked side by side for months. I relied on him, yes, but I led the project, I presented the work, I managed everything. I did not raise my voice. You brought me the problem and asked for help, I said. You did not delegate tasks, you offloaded technical development. Every component you presented originated from my designs, you know that. Her jaw tightened. I never said it was solely my work. You never said it was not. Leonard rubbed the bridge of his nose. The legal counsel finally spoke, her tone precise and cold. If Mr. Cole created any portion of the core deliverables and is not an employee, contractor, or vendor, then we are facing a significant intellectual property breach. She turned to Madeline. Did you disclose his involvement to anyone at any time? Madeline swallowed. I said I had help with some concepts. But you did not disclose that he developed the architecture models or compliance framework. Silence answered. Here is the issue, counsel continued. If Mr. Cole retains ownership of these components, the firm cannot legally use them if they were presented as your work. That constitutes misrepresentation. Both scenarios carry risk. Madeline looked at me, now not angry but pleading. Adrian, you are not trying to destroy my career. I am not trying to destroy anything, I said quietly. I am refusing to disappear. Leonard leaned forward. What outcome are you seeking? Recognition, compensation, legal action, employment with us, something else? All eyes turned to me. I am not here for revenge, I said. I believed you deserved to know whose work was being used as the foundation of this project, that is all. Counsel tapped her pen thoughtfully. One resolution would be purchasing the intellectual property from you. We would compensate you, obtain full rights, and draft a non-disclosure agreement. This would allow the project to continue without legal exposure. Madeline's head snapped toward her. Wait, what? Leonard looked at me. Would you consider that? I did not look at Madeline. Yes, depending on the terms. Negotiation followed numbers, clauses, ownership details. She watched in stunned silence as if witnessing a slow dismantling of the reality she had built. Finally, Leonard leaned back. $78,000 full IP transfer, and a comprehensive NDA internal acknowledgement of your contribution only. It was fair, clean, more than I expected, less than pride suggested. I agree, I said. Papers were signed. Madeline stared at the compensation figure as though it were written in a foreign language. You are really doing this, she whispered. I closed the pen. No, you did this, I am just concluding it. Her expression collapsed inward, grief, fury, disbelief all at once. As we left the room, she reached for my arm. Adrian, please, can we talk? There was nothing left to say. I stepped back. Her hand fell to her side. Outside the building, the late afternoon sunlight felt sharper, cleaner, like air after a storm. My phone buzzed once. A message from her. Please do not go. I locked the screen without reading further. Some choices explain themselves. 6 weeks later, the dust had settled, though nothing returned to its previous shape. Madeline was not fired, but she was removed from the project immediately. The promised promotion disappeared without announcement. She was reassigned to lower visibility internal work under close supervision. Her reputation did not shatter, it dimmed. Whispers replaced greetings. Delayed emails replaced enthusiasm. Meetings she once led proceeded without her. Professional wounds rarely bleed. They just ache continuously. We lasted 3 more days. 3 days of conversations that circled the same 2 truths. You betrayed me. You erased me. She tried anger, apologies, logic, tears. She said she hid my involvement to protect both of us from corporate complications. That I should have trusted her, waited until after the presentation, after the promotion, after stability. I asked the same question every time. Why were you willing to acknowledge me only after you had everything you wanted? She never answered. On the final night, she came to my apartment, exhausted, tie loosened, eyes red, as if sleep had abandoned her entirely. I know I messed up, she said, voice raw. But what you did, you burned everything down. I told the truth. You did not just tell the truth, you destroyed the room. No, I said, meeting her gaze. I walked into a room built on my work and opened the curtains. She flinched. You could have talked to me first. I tried for months. Every time I asked for recognition, you called it politics or complicated. You told me to stay away, so no one would discover the truth. That was not protection, it was concealment. Her eyes filled with tears. I never meant to hurt you. I know, but you did. Silence settled, heavy and final. So that is it, she whispered. We are done. Grief rose in me, warm and real. Yes, we are done. She nodded slowly, as if memorizing the moment. Then she left. She did not look back. I did not call after her. Closure is often quiet. Life did not repair itself overnight. Breakups leave strange remnants, photos forgotten in folders, routines that feel hollow without another presence. But gradually the air cleared. A week later, Leonard offered me a formal consulting role. Generous, logical, financially smart. I declined. The entire situation left a metallic taste. I wanted distance from anything connected to it. I placed the NDA money into savings, paid off an old loan, and took several days to rest, truly rest, for the first time in months. 2 weeks after the breakup, I met someone at a data analytics meetup. Her name is Elise. Kind, intelligent, self-possessed. When our connection began shifting into something more, we agreed on one rule. We never collaborate professionally. Not even small favors, not even quick opinions. Work and personal life remain separate. I learned that helping someone succeed should never require becoming invisible. And here is the quiet truth I eventually accepted. If Madeline had acknowledged me even once, none of this would have happened. No email, no confrontation, no NDA, no breakup. All she needed to say was, Adrian helped me build this, I could not have done it alone. But she chose image over honesty, ambition over partnership. She wanted a career-defining victory. She received a career-defining lesson, and I received something better than promotion praise or credit. I got myself back. I remembered that silence is also a decision, one I will never choose again. Thank you for watching this video to the end. Visit our channel for interesting and intriguing stories.